Between the 13th and 16th centuries, the Delhi Sultanate spanned across much of the Indian subcontinent. Forged from the infighting caused by Muhammad of Ghore's assassination, they continued to exist for more than 3 centuries, drastically shaping the subcontinent's politics. Because the Delhi Sultanate is a long and detailed empire, I'm going to break it up into multiple parts focused on each of its 5 dynasties. Thus, part 1 will be about the Mamluk dynasty. The Delhi Sultanate can trace its origins back to the Ghurid Empire. You see, in 1175, Muhammad of Ghor launched an invasion into northern India, which, at the time, was controlled by numerous Rajput states. For those of you who don't know, the Rajputs were a diverse group of Hindu warrior clans that ruled across much of northern and central India. For the next 3 decades, Muhammad of Ghor and his generals conquered large swaths of land in India and the Bengal region, massively extending the size of the Ghurid Empire. Now, the Ghurid Empire would fall apart in 1206 when Muhammad of Ghor was assassinated. From this, his lands were split. Ghiyath al-Din Mahmud gained Ghazni, Muhammad Bakhtiar Khalji gained Bengal, and Qutbuddin Aibak gained Delhi. Oh, and if you're wondering why this dynasty was referred to as the Mamluk dynasty, it's because Qutbuddin Aibak was a Mamluk. For those of you who don't know, Mamluks were non-Arab enslaved mercenaries, slave soldiers, or freed slaves who often held high-ranking military and administrative roles. Aibak immediately focused on securing his realm from other nobles of the now gone Ghurid Empire. He set up his headquarters at Lahore. Throughout his reign, Delhi, which was originally a small Rajput city, underwent massive growth. In 1210, after firmly establishing control, he decided to relax in Lahore by playing polo. However, he fell off his horse and was pierced in the rib by the pommel of the saddle. He died soon after, and, because he didn't have an heir, the nobles of the Sultanate appointed Aram Shah as the next Sultan. Now, there's just one problem. While Aram Shah was well liked by the nobles in Lahore, he was disliked basically everywhere else. Now, some of these nobles chose to rebel against him. These nobles chose Iltutmish, one of Aibak's slaves and his son-in-law, to be the successor. In 1211, with this support, Iltutmish marched into Delhi, seized power, and defeated Aram Shah's forces. Iltutmish's reign would be the peak of the Sultanate's power. Iltutmish took power in 1211 and established himself at Delhi, moving the capital away from Lahore. Global events would shake up his sultanate, as in 1218, the Khwarezmian Empire made the stupid move of killing off one of Genghis Khan's envoys, prompting them to invade Khwarezm. By 1221, the Mongols had conquered much of the eastern portion of the empire, and many refugees poured into the Delhi Sultanate. Aside from this crisis, his reign was also marked by territorial expansion. In 1220, Abbasid Caliph al-Nasir recognized Iltutmish's control over India. Throughout his reign, he expanded the Delhi Sultanate east into Bihar and Bengal, tightened his grip on the west as seen at the Sindh, and expanded south into central India. Unfortunately, all of this would end in 1236 upon Iltutmish's death. He initially arranged for his eldest son to succeed him. However, he died in 1229. To make things worse, the rest of his children, barring his daughter Razia, were extremely incompetent and would make terrible rulers. Despite this, he was succeeded by his son Firuz I. Firuz I became the Sultan in 1236, and he proved to validate everything I just said. For starters, rather than actively managing the Sultanate, he pursued pleasure, wine, and women. In his place, he put his mother in charge of the administration. Eventually, several revolts broke out. During these revolts, his mother planned to execute Razia in Delhi. Razia eventually found out about this, and in response, she incited the crowd at a congregational prayer in Delhi to attack the royal palace. This crowd gained support from some nobles and the army, and when Firuz returned to Delhi to quell the revolt, he and his mother were swiftly captured and deposed. Razia became the Sultan in that same year, but there was one major issue. You see, while the masses supported her rise to power, she lacked support from most of her Turkic nobles, as she didn't rely on a lot of them to gain her position. Some of these nobles decided to revolt. However, Razia quickly quelled the rebellion. Now, everything was looking good for her, except for one thing: she wasn't a good figurehead. You see, the few nobles who initially supported her did so because they thought that they could control her. In response, they revolted, and in 1240, they captured her and replaced her with their other brother, Muiz ibn Bahram. Bahram became the Sultan in 1240, and he proved to be ineffective. You see, in 1241, the Mongol Empire invaded and slaughtered the population of Lahore, and Bahram, whether he was just indecisive or scared, chose not to respond. So, he was deposed and killed in 1242. He was replaced by Iltutmish's grandson, Masud Shah. Masud Shah became the Sultan in 1242. Now, just like with his aunt Razia, he was, in the eyes of the nobles, another figurehead. And, just like Razia, he made the mistake of trying to consolidate more power for himself. And, as a result, Balban, a Delhi noble, Iltutmish's grandson Mahmud I, and Mahmud I's mother all conspired and had Masud Shah deposed in 1246. He was replaced by Mahmud I. Mahmud I became the Sultan in 1246, and, unlike the past 4 sultans we've discussed, his reign was actually somewhat longer and inherently less chaotic. This was ultimately because, unlike both Razia and Masud Shah, Mahmud I was a good figurehead. He spent most of his time praying and copying the Quran, and left stately affairs to Balban, who had become his vizier. In addition to this, Mahmud never had any children, so when he died in 1266, Balban became the next sultan. He and his descendants would be the last to rule over the Mamluk dynasty. Balban became the sultan in 1266, and unlike every other sultan up to this point, he ruled with an iron fist. First of all, he broke up the power of the sultan and his nobles. Second, he employed numerous spies throughout the bureaucracy and nobility of the sultanate, creating a strong intelligence network that answered only to him. Finally, he was a lot stricter with his nobles, often punishing them harshly for any mishap. But his changes didn't just extend to his dread. He also reformed the sultanate's army, which helped keep the Mongols out of the Indian subcontinent. Speaking of the military, in 1275, after the governor of Bengal broke off from the Delhi Sultanate, Balban moved to recapture it and subsequently appointed his younger son, Bughra Khan, as the governor of Bengal. 10 years later, the Mongols attempted an invasion of the Sultanate, but were defeated at the Battle of the Beas River. Balban's eldest son, Muhammad Khan, died in this battle. Aside from all the reforms and military expeditions undertaken, Balban's reign saw large-scale conversions to Islam in Punjab, the patronage of the Persian language, and the introduction of many Persian practices. Balban's reign ended when he died in 1287. Following Muhammad Khan's death, he arranged for his other son to succeed him. However, he chose to declare independence and rule over Bengal, so his grandson, Muhammad's son, Kai Khosrow, was set to be the next sultan. However, after Balban's death, the nobles chose to appoint his grandson, Muiz ibn Kaikabad, as the sultan. Kaikabad became the sultan in 1287, and he was neither an efficient ruler, nor was he a pious Muslim. During his reign, he appointed Jalaluddin Khalji, a Turco-Afghan warlord, as the commander of his army. Now, sometime near the end of his reign, he became paralyzed, so his 30-year-old son, Shamsuddin Qayyumars, was put in charge. Because Qayyumars was too young to rule, Jalaluddin became his regent. Soon after this, in 1290, he killed both Kaikabad and Qayyumars, ending the Mamluk dynasty and beginning the Khalji dynasty. So, in conclusion, the Mamluk dynasty, while an extremely unstable dynasty, played an important role in Indian history. Qutbuddin Aibak created the framework for the Delhi Sultanate, Iltutmish wisely led the Sultanate, and Balban protected a declining state. In the end, the Mamluks established the groundwork that would be built upon by the subsequent dynasties.